It is now time to elevate.
Time to motivate them.
Let's engage. It is now time to elevate.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for coming back. It's another episode of Engage, Motivate, and Elevate. I am your host, Monet Fox. And today we got a real special show planned for you. I'm so glad that you were able to come out and listen to it today. This is one of my, good friends. I look at him as a little brother. I've known him since maybe high school, right? Or maybe even before that. I can't even remember. But please help me welcome Rob Gibbs, also known as ProBlak.
Bam.
Thank you so much for coming on the show, Rob. I super appreciate it. For everyone that doesn't know already, Rob is a visual artist. He is in his art. He is a storyteller. He's also a community organizer. And so we're going to get right into the thick of what Rob does so everyone else can get to know him a little bit better too. All right, Rob, you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready to rock. Let's go.
All right, so the first thing we're going to talk about is just a little bit about your background, where you grew up, what that was kind of like for you growing up in your younger years, some of the challenges that you may have faced and things like that.
All right. Well, I grew up between Lenox Street and Orchard Park projects. So I lived in Lenox Street, grew up in Orchard Park because my father's side of the family, that's where everybody was at. We all connected at our grandmother's crib. We go to Ma's house, It's where every Friday night, we're doing the sleepovers to stay the night, me and my cousins, and we play those games. We mimic shows like putting on the hits, deepening the music, making each other laugh, playing those wild games like, the Chinese school and whatever childhood games we came up under, but like raised between both projects. And it was definitely traveling at a young age between like to and from. It was probably like a 10 or 15 minute walk, but like parents always worked. So when I get out of school, I would go to my grandmother's to be around with my other cousins because all our parents would drop us off or make sure that, we go back there afterwards. And, our grandfather do our homework with us. And if we never had homework, he made sure we did it, some other type of work. He gave us like little workbooks and things of that nature. But it wasn't until I got like a little bit older and it wasn't about staying in the house anymore that I started really hanging around Lenox Street. And the confusion was like, well, we don't ever see you around here, so you must not live around here. But I was always back and forth between the projects. And the older I got, the more I started hanging around Lenox Street.
Now, back in those days in the projects, there was, I was in the house. I wasn't really, I was a little bit more sheltered growing up. But correct me if I'm wrong, like back then there was a lot more street violence. People were crewed up. There was a lot more things going on in the street. Was that around the time that you were growing up, going through these two neighborhoods, or was that before it really got too crazy?
Well, nah, it always happened. It's just that when you have family or you lived in both areas, like when you're young, you just don't know what it is, what it's called, because nobody's talking to like grown-ups and kids were two different worlds, even if it was like older G's around the way. Unless you was a relative, the worlds was just different. I was the oldest in the house. You know what I'm saying? So like whatever I was into reflected on what I knew. And it was all about what my old man, what my pops exposed me to in reference to just always being around family, making sure you kicking in around your cousins. Gang activity always been around. Money making always been around. But when you're young, you're just having fun. You don't even care about like that stuff. You're just trying to be like good at basketball or dope at rapping or whatever it is. Because when you get around your homies, there was definitely that camaraderie that you had. And we were young. We didn't know, like young cats mind their business. We wasn't in grown folks' business. Right. Unless it was a Friday night and everybody, your aunties and uncles and them are partying. And you think you can be down there kicking it. and they send your ass upstairs so you can watch TV with your cousins.
Right. Go back in the house. When you're in the house, they're kicking you out the house. When they're outside, they're kicking you back in the house.
You back in the house, or they're in the living room. You got to go in the bedrooms.
Right.
So it was all about having all respect and being a kid when you're supposed to.
Yeah. Now, what I appreciate about what you're talking about is that it developed in you, from what I know about you now, is a really strong sense of community. You have that same thing with you right now. Is there anyone, I know you talked about your dad, is there anyone outside of your house, or even with your dad and inside your house, that really influenced you to start drawing, or, starting, really getting your creative juices flowing? How did that all start for you?
I want to say it honestly started again when, like, my grandfather was kicking it. He kicked it with us so hard and would challenge us around, like, different facts. You know what I'm saying? About, like, you see that traffic light? I'm like, yeah. He's like, where do you think that come from? I was like, science. He was like, no, black man invented that. So my grandfather was teaching us how to be black, young black boys, young black girls, where, like, go to the store, when you buy something, you always ask for a bag so they never think you stole something. Putting clothes out on the clothesline, he'd be like, how many chin-ups can you do? And you're doing chin-ups on the bar to be tough. Like, you got to know your arithmetic. That word arithmetic, he used to say it so hard. And my cousins know what I'm talking about. But he always challenged us to be smart. You understand? And so when it came down to anybody older that was kicking game, you knew how to listen. And our parents pride themselves on, like, their kids having manners. So when you practice having good manners, you can pretty much I was the dude that can go in all my friends' houses. That was big. You get what I'm saying? I wasn't that dude that, like, yo, hold on. Sit out here until I come back out. You know what I mean? Right. And then regardless of the house situation, you know what I'm saying? You learn different things just because of, like, the type of way that you can just be everywhere. You know what I'm saying? So, like, without going too far outside of the bricks, I was able to learn everything because there was so many people that I was interacting with. And my influences just come from, like, you got your homies' parents, their version of your parents, because that whole it takes a village is real. So if you were somebody they respected and liked and loved being around their kid, you became their kid too. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? My man Angelo, when we used to get up and, go to school, so crazy. When his mom's is cooking them ramen noodles in the morning, she's making a pot for me too. And this is before we go to school. I never forget them days. You know what I'm saying? We stayed the night at Mitchell's. And then we're all brothers at that point. And you got the big homie like Brent coming in, cracking on all of us, treating us like, you understand? So these were things that, like, were happening in different spots when we have a variety of, like, influences, young and old. And that same way you practice it inside your family for all those Friday nights and the ways I was around my cousins, I felt like, oh, shoot, this is the same stuff, just in a different spot, different areas. Right. And we didn't, when you look back at it all, you're like, wow, we were definitely put together to help raise each other, It's a blessing.
Mm-hmm. It's a blessing to have, people that are around your age. And, it's kind of like a pecking order, right? We talked about Grant, rest in peace. And you talk about these different people that you were close to, kind of dealing with you in a level of pecking order, right? But it was still all love. It was still all community. But they were, they were kind of making sure you understood where you kind of fit in that, which is super, super important. I think that's one of the things that, as you're speaking, I'm saying, this is something that we got to get back, right? Because now communities are so divided. I was talking to this one sister a couple of days ago, and she was saying how Boston in particular doesn't have a really strong community of just Black people anymore. We're all divided. Everyone, has moved out to Randolph and to Brockton and to Stoughton, they kind of moved out. And so now there's not one solid Black community where now that, our generation, you're maybe just a year younger than me. No, you're a little bit younger. But the generations under me, where we're looking for that sense of community to come back. I think it's really important that you got to experience it, because with the initiatives that you take, with the mentoring that you do, I'm sure that you're helping to kind of reestablish that, at least in the minds and hearts of these kids. And I think it's just super important until we're able to do something on a more tangible, physical level. I think it's really important to put that into the youth's minds real solidly. And I love what you said about your granddad and the opportunity that he gave you to understand what Blackness was. A lot of people, you know, me included, we didn't get that. You know, my mom, well, I was, you know, on my dad's side, my dad's Native American, so I was heavy into that culture, you know, so I learned a lot about being Native, which I'm super grateful to. But Native was very different than colonized urban society, right? It's very, very different thought of, you know, very, very different process of thought. And so it was difficult for me to kind of align myself with people that were struggling more or doing different things that were, you know, or hustling or things like that. It confused me because I didn't understand that there wasn't support in the house. You know, I never really like got that when I was growing up. So it used to, why does this person feel like he got to do this? Why does, you know, not really understanding the struggle, I guess, you know, as much, because my dad, one, with Natives, they don't teach separation through color. Like, that's just not a thing. That was never a thing, you know, because Native Americans can be white or they can be very, very dark skinned. So it was never a thing for us, right? But then my mom, she was heavy into church, you know, and so her thing was just love everybody, you know, just love everybody. And it was never really that distinguishing. And I'm not saying that those things were wrong. I feel like, you know, they taught what they knew, but I will say that given the opportunity to really discern and understand who your community was, I think that there's just so much more advantage in that learning, you know, so much more opportunity, so much more free thinking in that type of upbringing. So I'm grateful to your grandfather for showing it to you, because you've always been somebody, you know, I joked and said you're just a couple of years, but you're at least a generation younger, maybe. I don't want to say too much. But I remember seeing you when I was hanging in the projects with Angie. You remember that? Like way back in the day. And you was little, right? You remember that? Right.
Angie, okay, yeah.
That was my girl. Remember, I was at her house all the time. But that was high school. I was in high school though, you know, and I remember seeing you around, and I always remember saying, like, he's a good little kid, you know, like he's a good kid. I can tell he's a good kid just because of the things you said. Like, you were always mannerable, always respectful. You never came sideways at any of us. You know, you were always very courteous and things like that. And so I think it speaks volumes to people seeing that, but it also speaks volumes to the things that you've accomplished as well in your life. So, you know, if I've never said it publicly, I'm proud of you, man. Like I truly appreciate the man that you've grown into. I don't want to embarrass you, you know, but I am. I'm super, super proud of you. You know, I've seen you grow up, and I've seen where you came from, and now to see where you're at, it's just a super, super great thing for me. And I want to go into that now, like the things that you started to do. I want to start with Artists for Humanity. That's probably like the first thing that you really got started in. All right, so tell us what Artists for Humanity is and what your role in that is. You co-founded it. So let's start from there, from you starting it off. Like, before it started, what happened?
What happened? Yeah. At that time in middle school, there was no art classes. I've never taken anything that was formal in regards to art, other than like hitting a piece of paper on my bed, or getting some markers or coloring, you know, people's jeans and shirts.
Right.
I wanted to be the cool dude, right? When I found out that girls like the fact that I was drawing on their jeans, that's where it took off, right? But at our middle school, when Susan Rogerson, who's the executive director right now, when she came up in there, she was just providing an opportunity for middle school cats to like be exposed to art or learn something in reference to different artists in some way, shape, or form. Our middle school principal, Mr. Leonard, Dr. Stephen Leonard, he always used to give us the opportunities of a lifetime, man, just to keep us engaged and just like that high how can I say it, that high level of contribution without knowing that we were contributors. If LL Cool J came to our school to challenge the whole school about making music videos about staying in school, we was that squad. If there was something that needed to get done in the school, we were that team, you know. And these are all guys and girls that, like, I didn't go up with around the way. I was just in class with. So in school, we was making the best of times. When we got this opportunity to do this art project, I was like, word, we getting out of class. This is it. And it was something that was happening after school. And I was like, damn. So getting involved in that, seeing a project from beginning to end, and then being like showcased outside of a place or in a place that I never really thought we would have been able to go to. It's like a switch turned on, you know. After that project that we did, and it was showcased at the Hard Rock Cafe, we walked Susan to a car and we was like, yo, what else can we do? You know what I mean? And she invited us to her studio over there on Thayer Street, next to, which is now the Soho District, believe it or not, over there next to Pond Street Inn. I was like, wow, I remember what this joint used to be, you know? Right, so it evolved into this. So we got invited to a studio. Ironically, that summer I got grounded because, you know, I'm being hot on the street doing doing the extras, being a teenager, smelling myself, because we just graduated from middle school. And then after I did my little bit of time, and I apologize because I probably told this story like a million times. But
not to these viewers, not to these listeners, you know, it's all new.
Right. I just try to find a different way to tell this story. We've gotten to, so after that, you know, it was at the end of that summer that like my beginning had started and what grew into what is Artists for Humanity. There was about 5 or 6 of us that was in her studio on a regular basis, like day in, day out. She gave us the keys to a studio, and that's when like the ownership of how and what we create, and then having a space to do it outside of my bedroom and on, you know, my bed, because I shared rooms with my baby brother. Having a space to take this new stuff that you're learning to do and practice, it was all dope. And that small studio that she had, over time, it just required to grow bigger because there was more of us that were just showing an interest. We were getting into bigger projects. We were learning under some level of apprenticeship where, like, you know, you got a practicing artist who's getting like these gigs and we're helping her out with them. You know what I mean? And they're not like small joints. These are like high impact. And it's from that practice that we developed it. You know, when you got somebody, I got an idea to start up something that may be something that goes across generations. We just heard the term that, like, how would we feel if we would become a pilot group to this idea? And so the magic began from there. If I had to tell you kind of like, you know, the elevator pitch to what Artists for Humanity is, I won't, because you're going to hear from so many people that are there. Amid the mission statement, you can go on the website and read that, you know, but I can speak about to the unwritten in reference to like what's authentic to me in my experience, like my Artists for Humanity. I feel like what we got involved with from the beginning, and it's the reason why I brought it up, it was just for us to do something that felt good. And I knew from the time when I was younger that I always wanted to, when it felt good and it didn't feel like I was doing something that was going to get me in trouble, there should be more people like us that gets involved, or this opportunity should be available for everybody. And so whatever we can do to keep this going, because I've always been in like neighborhood centers at the, especially the neighborhood house over there in Orchard Park, always been a part of that. That was a big, like, that was the thing in my life where I didn't know why I had to go there. And it was just a place where, like, you find out later on, that's what developed the work, or my life work as I know it now. I was always a kid that would make the, you know, the counselors work. I'd always challenge the situation. Not that I was bad. I was just always in the mix. My face is always there. Quiet as hell, but I'm always there. Played sports, got into this, got into that. But I guess it was only natural to have to, fulfill that role, but I wanted to do it different because you always want to leave a lasting impression. We just didn't know how that impact was. And when I got around the same time I got turned on to being creative, that's when like this whole program started. Here we are 20 some odd years later, and I feel like it's probably like the most authentic experience that young people can have in reference to job training. Right. If I told them it was job training at the end of the day, it'll probably not sound too attractive, but it's where we have a place and an opportunity and a responsibility to help young people grow in some level of becoming better people that they were by being exposed to something that they can honor a commitment. Because, you got to learn some basics in order to achieve something in life, man. We are the in-between. Like you go to school and you learn a lesson, but with the application to it. You know what I mean? With the okay, this is what you practice and learn in school, but here's a place where you can apply what you've learned. This is a place where you can build some level of communicative skill, something that can is transferable in life.
That's right.
Yeah.
Now, what I appreciate so much is, again, just a strong sense of community, right? So I know that you mentor these kids, you work with them on a really individual level too. It's not just you're the executive director now over there. Is that
I'm not the ED. I'm not. I'm just It's kind of weird because what I am, the title.
If you have to give yourself a role or a title, what would that be over there?
It would just be, at this point, it would just be co-founder, man, because I embody everything that program does, whether it's the raising of awareness, the application of what the mission statement goes about, raising funds. It may not be to the capacity that we're at, but raising funds to help kids feel important, involved, help out with their families in some way, shape, or form. Take the things that I've learned on a smaller scale in my life to make a bigger impact than theirs. So I would just be co-founder just to flatten the whole thing out.
Okay. But what's important for me in that title unofficially is the compassion behind it, right? The level of work that you're doing with kids in urban communities to help them, like you said, feel important, feel like they should want to accomplish something, and giving them the tools, not just telling them oh, you should, but also, working with them and showing them how they can, how they can be effective out here. And that is, for me anyways, the most important thing, because we can talk and talk and talk. If someone's not giving direction, or if they're not giving love and support, then that's kind of in one ear and out the other. So this is a good way to start talking about some of your projects. I know you hate talking about them, you talk about them a lot, but I want to talk about it a little bit because it is important, right? And in the sense of, and not typical, not the way you typically speak about it, because for me, what's so important is the effect on the community, the impact on community, right? This show is about rebuilding the urban families. You're a new dad, so you have a whole different level of thought around what this is, I'm sure. And from what I see, I haven't met your daughter personally, but from what I see about, your posts and the different things that you put, you're about your family. And so I think that that's just a really important component. It speaks a lot to your artistry. And I know that you had a series of murals that was really attributed to paying homage to these underserved communities and things like that. So I just want to talk a little bit around your ideation for it. You don't have to talk specific about the murals, but around your ideation around it. What was your thought around really being able to heal communities in that way?
I think when it comes down to these projects and what I'm starting to learn, because a lot of things by the grace of a higher power, I feel like the alignment has challenged me to, state my purpose in a lot of ways. A lot of the communities that my murals are currently in happen to be benchmarks in my life that are rich with this type of information. I want to showcase excellence that comes up out of here, not talk about what's disenfranchised and all this other stuff, because the richest resources are from the inner city. You know, the jewels, the gems come from out of here, and it's because of the hardships that gave us character. You know what I mean? Like, it gave us the line to walk so that we know what's good, what's bad, what's different. There's always positive things that stick in your head, but the negative things just hold weight because that's the programming. You know what I mean? That's what everybody's on. That's what some of the stuff is just kind of thriving off of. So the need to create balance and positive messaging is just something that's as natural as breathing, you know? So if I had an opportunity to say something that would uplift and showcase excellence, I wanted to be able to do that in the capacity where I had the opportunity through doing graffiti and everything, going to different cities and seeing how that, like, how those visuals, how those murals, how things of that nature have an impact, not just on the people, but like they add value to those areas. You know what I'm saying? And I was like, damn, I always wanted to establish some level of value to what I do and create some type of story to be able to pass on to others. So given the experiences of like always getting up and doing the graffiti stuff, you always want to know, like, yo, what else? You know what I'm saying? I think that's been like my gift and curse, is because I always want to ask, right, what else? What else is there? And I know I wasn't just going to be limited to rocking in the shadows or like painting in places that people can't see. That was more or less practice for what's able to happen right now. And if you were ever given an opportunity to not only speak for yourself, but speak for, like, I feel like every time I do something, I'm representing everybody that I've come in touch with, people that I've grown up around, individuals that probably aren't as vocal, you know what I mean? To be like, hey, you know what? We got schooled on something that's just priceless. You know what I mean? You can't learn it in a university. You can have 1,000 books around you and none of them will probably have what you experienced in it personally.
That's right.
We want to be able to add on to those stories. So that's what I feel like that's what these murals have been doing. And having the skill set to deliver, it all came from coming up and having the support and just practicing and practice. Like, I paid my dues in so many ways, but I don't sit back and ever brag about anything. I just rather show you better than I can ever tell you. And if I can inspire the next great mind or another young individual to come up and do it better, then that's what I'm here for. I'm here for access, because the way we had to find out stuff, here it is years later, and I got a different type of experience and energy. Had I been doing this younger, I just would have been a different dude by now. You know what I'm saying? And so the timing is right. But it's also like, you know, we live in a city that's old and it's traditional and a lot of it's like ways. So it's just starting to open up to what these other places are naturally doing. Or maybe it was once there and it went through a change in reference to like how the resources just left. And now that they're coming back because you see all this development happening, you get these tiers of gentrification that are going on, because like a building that you felt like nobody gave a shit about, it now has value because you've artistically contribute something to it, and it can displace people who could afford to live there out of it. You know what I'm saying? Like, just knowing that type of ability or that action that you have has that much weight, that much power. It's nutty. So I've only gained that understanding from traveling, checking out places. You know what I mean? The best advice I'd ever got was get a passport and go. Because when you're here and you're local, you know what works. You know what I mean? You're around people that know. You're preaching to the choir. But how do you know if what you do impacts bigger than the way you live? Right. You know, that's the big question.
Yeah. There's a couple of things that I want to break down. One is, you were talking earlier about when you talked about the series of murals, and that's Breathe Life, right? That's what we're talking about. Was that okay? So that's the name of the series of murals that's in and around the city of Boston, on different buildings. And one of the things that you said, that you have the talent and the skill, so you're going to do the work, hoping to inspire someone. And the word that I didn't hear you use, which is what you give to so many people, is hope. You know, you said that you want to provide value, but you provide so much hope. And I want you to, not just to say it so that you can, not to toot your own horn, but I want you to recognize, the weight of what you're giving to other people. It's not just, oh, you have a talent and you want to be able to express that. People see those things and it inspires hope. I remember seeing a mural of a young girl down in the South End, that building that you did. And I didn't know it was you. I didn't know that was what you had done. And I remember stopping and looking like, yo, that's dope. And then when I ever found out it was you, I wanted to call you, but then I said, I ain't gonna call him, man. I'm showing like a lot of people, but I didn't know it was you at first. I just saw the work and that's what it did for me. It inspired me to say, whoever did, I knew it was a Black person that did it, so you already get these thoughts just around the art, and you don't even have to put a face to it, so I appreciate your humility around it, but I do want to acknowledge that, you're providing something that's so substantial to urban youth, and that is hope, man. Like, it's important, it's an important component. A lot of us are missing it. Not feeling loved or feeling undervalued or buying into the hype of, being criminalized and ostracized for our movements and things like that. And so when we see things like this, I just think that it's something that I have a responsibility to definitely acknowledge and make sure that people understand, and that you especially, understand that the things that you're providing are core things that are reaching people inside their soul, and that's not something that anyone can front about, it's a great thing. And I know that I want to talk a little bit more about the mentoring, because you don't just mentor with AFH, Artists for Humanity. You do, like, there's a girls group you mentor. Like, talk about some of the other mentoring work that you do, because I think that it's just all important as it relates to community work and endeavors and things.
Right. There was a point in time when I had to, again, my gift and curse is saying, what else? What else is there? So there was a point in time at Artists for Humanity where, I had to venture out and do work in other places because that was the only job I knew. I worked at the YMCA for about 5 years over there on Huntington Ave, closer to the hood, but central to like another part of Boston that I probably would have never touched if I haven't been there. And so helping run that teen center with a lot of people that, like, my mentor now, Paul Goodnight, he always shared with me, like, yo, you don't ever really choose your mentors, they kind of choose you. And so there was grown-ups that I've always been around, and it wasn't with any strategy, it was just what felt right and what made sense. That over there at the teen center at the YMCA, I learned so much more in reference to how to apply what it is without my talent and skill set being the only thing that people looked at. It kind of gave me like a different identity as a youth specialist. You know what I'm saying? And so it was like going to college, but it was just through work. Running that teen center was just something that was life-changing because it was about the work in a different capacity. Because you're in a space where, like, you're occupying a space, you're not making the organization money, but you're giving the community a place where, like, it's not necessarily a safe haven or nothing like that. It was just something that made sense for young people to be a part of, and just holding the YMCA accountable to its community that it's around. I've learned a lot about community asset building and organizing with being around, Deetra, Najma, you know what I'm saying, Lori, Kenny Bailey, Ioka, like that whole squad where they were just doing these workshops. Yeah. And I've gotten schooled on always being able to pay attention to how they deliver the information. But because I was, the way I rolled, I got a certain type of attention. It was about packaging that to deliver something where people will walk away with something at the end of the day. And it was dope being, like, heavily involved in hip hop, that you had like something that's as basic to us as a freestyle session. People that don't understand that would look at it like, oh my God, they're just communicating in this cipher. And, like, it was just things that were naturally going on because you're young and you're just thriving, or like playing ball, being a part of leagues, traveling with, with teenagers on a Saturday, you know, running a basketball team. Like, who would ever thought I'd be coaching? And, you know, I'm over here, you know, I do all types of stuff, but who would ever thought I'd be coaching basketball just on the strength of like a passion and love of things that kept us together. So from doing that work at the Y, it opened me up to doing things in like, as far as Holyoke, the Bay Area. I went all the way to Colorado to get trained to be a trainer. Denver, Colorado, like, why am I over here just learning this, you know, learning these techniques in order to deliver? And then coming back to Boston with all these ingredients, and then getting picked up by like local organizations that like, you know, like the Boston Foundation and organizations of that nature that were like, okay, so this dude does something about community asset building. And it wasn't about what I knew, it was who I knew that was in those positions, and just doing something that attracted and kept the attention of youth, because, you know, I obviously was translating what needed to be delivered in the language of the people. So it didn't just stop there. You know, with the girls group in Holyoke, that was cool to just tap into things that weren't foreign to me. It was just all about how to bring people together. Let me use this ability for me to do art to keep your attention. But then in that 45 to 4 hours that we spent, we went over everything from understanding who we are, developing ideas around self, and just being able to look into that, you know, so that you know who you are and how you contribute to just groups that you're a part of. And that translated all the way up to what we currently do at Artists for Humanity. When we have the kids come in, and the first project that we challenge them on is to do a self-portrait, because it's such a deep metaphor to look into yourself and understand who you are. You don't have to necessarily know everything, but understand who you're looking at, and just building off of the ideas and the pride that you would develop from doing that. Yeah. The confidence,
and
you know.
I want to just tell the viewers and listeners that Artists for Humanity, the information will be posted at the end of the show. So make sure you guys stay to the end, because I was going to ask you, you know, where can people go now to get connected into this work, into this, you know, people want to be mentored, people want to, you know, kind of gain. I mean, obviously we're under this social distancing situation right now, but you know, once these things get lifted, you know, I want to be able to provide like a viable resource for people in our community to be able to reach out and kind of take a look and see for themselves what's really happening. So we're going to post that information. But one last question before I go is, and I don't want to not acknowledge that you've been like in exhibitions all the way from Boston to LA. I want to say that he's so humble. So I struggle with giving his own accolades, right? Like, so I struggle. I'm trying to piece them in, people, because he's just not the guy to really brag about it. So Boston Globe, Bay State Banner, you know, I got to just mention all these things really quickly. Boston Magazine, you know, NBC, he's been featured on all these things. ProBlak is his artist name. Okay, so I just wanted to be able to say all of that before, really quick. See, that was fast, right? You didn't have to say much about it.
Who is he?
But I do want to ask. So for people that are struggling to kind of like identify with themselves or looking for some type of help, and I'm not talking about just youths now. I'm talking about adults. You know, men that are your age or men that are looking to change maybe their trajectories. How important would you say, you know, artistic expression, creative expression is for a person in their development? How important was it for you?
It was super important because it's the unspoken herd. It's mine. You know what I mean? It was one of those things that I can like kind of, unfortunately, in this time of the age of isolation, but we was isolating ourselves without having to be confined in a way that, like, you know, I didn't have to get locked up to get with myself to know who I was or what I was trying to find or dig into. You know, I found an album to get into. And so I think it was the artistic process, or just process period. It translates across any discipline that you just sit down and put your time, energy, and effort into. I want to say like, because I've understood how to draw, master, or paint something, it opened my mind up to other things that influence me to get it going. So I know how to sit down and listen to an album. I know how to look at something with some level of appreciation. I have patience with people, just even in conversation, because I would want that same energy as I'm delivering what I'm doing. So you got to like practice what you preach. But if there was anything that helped me, I shouldn't say practice what you preach. You just got to walk the talk, you know? And so if there's a way that I wanted to communicate to people and have them understand that, then I needed to be able to display that, because like I said earlier, I could show you way better than I could tell you. And in order to show you in a way that like made sense, my time, energy, and effort would have to go into something that validates that. Because a lot of people are like self-validation, you know what I'm saying? Self-proclaimed. But if I got this piece sitting in front of you that literally took me all of my life up until the hour count of me doing it, then that's some validation alone, where it's like, okay, while this brother was in front of this, I don't know how he did it, but he had some thoughts. He had something to say. There was a way he had to translate that. So I feel like art helped me just kind of communicate in more ways than one, whether it's visually or being able to like articulate what I'm able to say, because I was probably listening to an interview or an entire, you know, discography of like a certain artist, you know? So it just gave me the time and awareness and the patience. And also it just gave me something to talk about when I get in the larger groups. So like you go to the barbershop, you know what I mean? You're kicking it with the fellas, you got something to speak on. You watching sports, you go back out on the street, you got something to engage in, to throw back and forth on. So it's about being able to contribute as well to any place that, you know, you put yourself in. So I feel like it's important to have those practices so you're not always in your head and you got some basic things just kind of locked down.
Yep, I agree with that, and I appreciate you saying it too. I want to just, you know, highlight the fact that, you know, even if you're not an artist, you know, for those listening out there, even if you're not an artist, a visual artist, creative expression is just such a great opportunity to release and to step outside while being inside yourself. You know, I think that it's really an important outlet and release for all of us to be able to do, especially those within urban communities that sometimes feel like they don't have any kind of outlets or any kind of releases, or, you know, they feel so pent up and stressed out and things like that. Doing something creative. My mother actually got me one of those adult coloring books, you know, the really skinny lines. So, you know, sometimes when I start to feel like a little bit more confined than I want to in my house at these times, I'll pull that coloring book out. I'll just start, you know, doing the lines because it's so intricate, right? So just the aloneness of my own thoughts, being able to stay in the lines and create this, you know, thing full of colors, and, you know, so it's helpful. And I want to just encourage all of you listening to really try to find a level of creative outlet for you. It'll definitely help you to ease your conscience, ease your mind, you know, give you some more motivation and drive for yourself. And also it's a sense of accomplishment as well. You know, artistic expression is definitely, you know, gives you a strong sense of yourself in terms of accomplishing something. So definitely want to encourage that to all of you. Thanks so much again, the artist, ProBlak, the man, Rob Gibbs. Thanks so much for being a part of the show. I'm sure that the viewers and listeners are going to be checking for you soon. So I'm grateful that you were able to come out.
No,
we'll stay in, but be a part of this.
I appreciate the time and just even, you know, the exchange. I appreciate all the questions, and hopefully I, you know, answered them to.
You did. No, you did great. You did great. I'm sure you did.
I was looking around in my head for the answers, but I was going.
This is the authentic expression, man. You can't get no better than this. So I'm super grateful.
All right.
All right. And to everyone out there listening, make sure you tune in, see the credits at the end so you can get information about ProBlak, where his art's found, you know, and just a little bit of more background about him. Thanks so much for tuning in. When this show airs, it's going to be the day before Mother's Day. You want to say Mother's Day, Happy Mother's Day to anybody before we drop off?
Happy Mother's Day to my mother, my grandmother, everybody that had high influence. Happy Mother's Day to Asia. We collaborated and made history.
Right.
bring our little baby in the world. So, and truth be told, when I was born on Mother's Day.
Oh, where are you?
My birthday will be the day before Mother's Day this year, but when I came into the world, I came on Mother's Day.
Nice. Well, happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. We appreciate you listening in to another episode of Engage, Motivate, and Elevate. I'm your host, Monet Fox, and we will see you next time.
Peace.
It is now time to elevate.
Time to motivate them.
Let's engage. It is now time to elevate.